Hey, and thanks for listening. This is Conversations, the True Voice Media podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Gibbard. Let's get started. So here we are. It is episode 10, I believe. Yes, episode 10. And I'm here with Mark Fidelman, who is the CEO of Evolve, and also Raynforest. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So is it two different companies, or is one a parent company?
Yeah, well, Evolve is the R&D department for Raynforest. So that's where we tested all of our, let's just call them theories as to how this is all going to work. And we've got a couple of use cases that are going to scale. We've now codified them, and we're actually in private beta with quite a few people.
Rockin'. I actually just dropped by the site before we jumped on this, and it's a really nice looking site. So I don't know if you've heard the news, but Clout was just bought by Lithium.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, it's unfortunate, but whenever I hear the word influence, immediately my mind goes right towards the, existing influence tools like Empire Avenue and Clout and Cred and Peer Index and all of those. What are you doing that's different?
That's an excellent question. Clout made several mistakes. Actually, let me take that back. A lot of them have been experimenting, but all of those experiments, for the most part, have either worked kind of well or they didn't work at all. So what we have found with Raynforest is something that works every time, and it provides value and is related to influence. And I think that use case, we're not ready to talk about what that use case is, but it's something Clout should have done from day one.
Okay. Hey, by the way, I know because you're in private beta, there's probably a lot of stuff that's real hush-hush. So as we're going through this, that we're going to make the keyword banana. If we say anything that is top secret and we got to go back and re-edit, you're going to be like, that whole section, totally banana.
I think I'm fine.
All right, good.
If it slips out, it slips out.
All right, good stuff. If the banana slips out, the banana slips out. So, Mark, we met the first time in Dallas, I believe it was. You were given the presentation about, supercharging your marketing with influencers.
Right.
And you gave this really awesome presentation, which I just shared on my LinkedIn because I am a huge fan of superheroes, and your slides were all superheroed out with like a comic book look and everything. Clearly the coolest slides I've ever seen. So I'm really fascinated how you got to this point where this is what you're doing. Like, so I looked into you. I know we've met at this conference in Dallas, and then we just met down in IBM Connect again and kind of just reconnected. And, I knew influencer marketing was really like a niche of yours. I went and I looked you up, and I saw all this stuff about you. You wrote the book, Socialized, which, rave reviews about it. You've been doing this for a lot longer than I thought. You look much younger than you are, apparently. So kudos for that, man. Whatever skin cream you're using, be sure to let me know after the show. But how did you get here? Because you've done so much other stuff, and you talk so much about social and business and social business, and now you're really on this influencer thing. Like, what got you started on it? And, just give me some context about that.
Sure. It's actually a much broader context, and it's simply this. I couldn't get the press, or anyone else for that matter, to pay attention to me. So I had to come up with very creative ways to get influential people to pay attention to me, because I knew that their audience is who I wanted to influence or get them to at least look at my products, right? So I had to come up, and I actually fell into it accidentally 4 years ago when we were doing a survey to our current customer base, and I asked a simple question. I said, who influences you the most? Name the top 3 people that influence you the most. Now, this is kind of a throwaway question. I just thought I was, interested in, who that could be. And it turns out we turned that in, because the answers were so provocative, we turned that into, it wasn't even an infographic at the time, it was just a table. And we're talking 4 years ago. And we put this table on our blog, and within a day we had 600,000 views, and we had people trying to take it down because it was so popular and so controversial. And you can look this up even today. It was the most influential people in open source. So, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, if I just put out a list of most influential people in a subject matter, it can go viral like this. And sure enough, that was viral 4 years ago. Maybe not today, but 4 years ago.
That's still viral, man. The most attention I've gotten on any post, wherever it went anywhere, was something like 28,000 hits. And I was like crapping my pants. I was so excited about that. So yeah, 600,000 is pretty serious, man.
I mean, we had Larry Augustin was number one at the time, and they had the press in London interviewing him in London the next day based on this list. It had never been done before, unless it was like a Forbes or a top magazine. And we had put together this survey. That's how we did it back then, this survey on the most influential. And this thing just went bananas. And so from that point on, all those influencers would basically do anything that we asked them to do for our organization, whether it was promote something or write a piece of some content for us or give us some advice. So I'm thinking, wow, there's really something here. And it took me really 4 years to kind of master it and get it to a point now where we can codify it and expand on it. I can't talk about what that is right now, but I encourage anyone, and we're starting with sports, by the way, but I encourage anyone in the sporting field or wants to work with influential people in sports to go sign up for Raynforest.com, spelled with a Y, RAYN, forest.com. And just another aside, sorry, I keep digressing here. We chose sports because sport athletes in particular have a higher emotional quotient with their audience than do guys like you and I. And they can really move the needle for brands. Even if you're just a little bit outside of the sports realm, I mean, you could be essentially any brand could use somebody in sports, I assure you. They just have this connection with their audience that's far stronger than any other group with the exception of musicians and singers.
Yeah. So what's the plan then? So two parts of it. I mean, when I visited Raynforest, I saw there's the marketer side and then there's the influencer side, and you're starting with sports here. So kind of what's the next step on this? Are you looking to use this as like a test case that like you can use sports as a company, you can find, you can connect marketers and brands with these athletes and kind of leverage their audience in a way that is transparent and awesome? I mean, kind of what do you see happening from this first phase, and then what's the grand picture after that?
Well, I mean, this is one of the things that Clout missed and everybody else is missing, but they're going to figure it out as soon as we go live, but it's authenticity. How do you make sure that the athlete, it doesn't have to be an athlete, it could be a sports broadcaster. You'd be amazed how many sport broadcasters on YouTube are more popular than some of the reporters on ESPN. But how do you make the relationship authentic? So we figured out a way to do that, so that both sides authentically like each other and they want to work together in very unique and creative ways. So we figured that out. The next step now is how do we get them working together so that it's mutually beneficial to both the influencer and the brand, as well as provides value to the customer. So that's the use case that we're working on now. We have several. One example would be what's been done in traditional media, so I'm not giving anything away, but you can incorporate the brand story within YouTube content, for example. And I'll give you one example that I like to cite, and it's going to be up on a blog post I'm putting up this week, is I don't know if you've seen Jerry Seinfeld's new show on YouTube.
No. So he has a new show on YouTube?
He does. He picks people up in sports cars or actually any kind of car that matches the particular person he's interviewing, drives them to a coffee shop, and just has this one-on-one dialogue. It's hilarious. The last one I saw was with Howard Stern. Just a hilarious conversation for 15, 20 minutes. It's all done on YouTube. But what you don't know subtly is that Acura kind of sponsors this content. So when Jerry Seinfeld passes an Acura vehicle, he'll say something like, "Wow, that's a cool looking car, isn't it?" And Howard Stern, this isn't what happened in this show, but it happened in another show. I don't remember who it was, but they were both commenting on this Acura, like they liked the new body style and they thought it looked cool. And then the show just went on. So it's this kind of this product mention in the show as part of the story of the show. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that. The brand being sponsored by an organization that could insert themselves in the story without it being kind of this interrupt marketing that we see every day today, right? We got banner ads, we got text ads, we got all this interrupt marketing, which takes away from what media is trying to do and then what the brand's trying to do.
So you've just opened up a can of worms in my head, and I want to go down this path with you, because the way I look at it, there's three different things happen here, right? We're talking about product placement, which, is ubiquitous in television and in movies. And, from my film school days, even I remember us talking a lot about that. And you've got sort of the sponsored ad. If I don't know if you remember the show NBC's Heroes. It was a show about superheroes.
Yep.
I remember the first couple episodes, Nissan sponsored the first couple episodes, and it ran it entirely without commercials. They purchased all the TV commercial spots and then just ran one at the beginning and one at the end. And I thought that was awesome. But you knew it was them, right? So product placement, you typically don't know it's them. At the beginning and end, you know it's them. And then when you have the interruption marketing and advertising, where you have, we'll be back after a short break, and they put in those advertisements, you definitely know. So as far as, you had mentioned authenticity, what do you think the ethical line and ethical responsibility is for disclosure, for advertisers to talk about,
So what do I think it is?
Yeah, what do you think that ethical line is? At what point do you have to disclose and what point don't you? Does it have to be if you get a 30-second spot that you have to disclose, or is it if you just mention Acura in the show, it's all right?
Well, I mean, legally you have to disclose in an obvious way is the requirement. So if you don't know that it's being sponsored, then you need to state specifically that it's being sponsored. Now, TV, it's just assumed, that your commercial breaks.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I lost you for a minute there. All right, so let's back up. So the ethical line. So television, if it's stated clearly, you kind of know if it's sponsored content. But what about these scenarios that, they're calling it native advertising, where like you got the BuzzFeed thing and they're just talking about something in the context. At what point is that line too fuzzy for us?
The rules are pretty specific, but how you implement them is not. So let me give you an example. If it's not clear that this is being sponsored by somebody or there's some kind of payment being exchanged, then you could be in trouble by the FTC. But if it's in a normal, I don't know what they call this term specifically, but if it's in a format that it's obvious that it's being sponsored, like television and commercials where there's a break and the commercial starts where it's obvious, then you don't need to disclose. But, if you look at the statistics, even branded advertising or branded media still has far greater impact than your kind of traditional blog post. But there's an even better way of doing it. We figured out how to do it where it's more authentic, where it truly is these influencers acting as filters. I'll give you an example. If you've got Michael Jordan, he says that he built this shoe and helped with Nike create this shoe. You could damn well bet that, he's endorsing this and that's authentic, right? Because he was part of the innovation process of creating this shoe. So those are the types of things that I think you'll see in the future, and that's about as much as I can tell you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole native advertising issue is a really interesting one, and I'm not sure where it's going to go. And I think, my concern, the reason why I bring it up is that, I look at these sponsored posts that come through on Facebook, and they try all this different language around it to make the waters kind of muddied and fuzzy. Like, is it promoted? Is it suggested? Is it sponsored? So they use all this different language, and you kind of wonder, is this something that they just think algorithmically I'm going to like, or has it been paid for to get that visibility in front of me? So I kind of wonder, where that line's going to be. But as far as, moving forward, looking at what you're trying to do with influencers, are you trying to get it to the point, we have your test case of athletes and people in sports. Are you trying to get this to a point where anybody who's influential has the ability, if let's say I have an audience of 50 devoted people that hang on my every word. I don't have this. I wish I did. But if I had 50 people that just hung on my every word and I talked about, custom fishing rods, would you be looking to match me to the advertiser for that particular demographic, or is it ever going to get down to that niche in terms of the platform you're looking to build?
No, that's exactly where it's going. It won't just be that. It'll be, Jeff is, very influential in this particular kind of fishing rod, but also the people the brand is trying to influence just so happens to like this kind of motor on this particular boat. So if you get influential people that are talking about both, and the product that the brand's trying to promote, that audience will be about 4 times more likely to go and buy the product that influencers for two separate groups are telling that particular person to go buy the product the product that's being promoted. So you'll see it in context a lot more, and that was one of the things that clout didn't do, was give you influence in context. It was a big fatal flaw.
Yeah, I'm actually influential in unicorns on clout.
Yeah, I bet you.
Well, because I put that in there, and I was like, this is funny. Ha.
Right. Yeah. But we'll actually measure your performance amongst the unicorns. So if you're not producing rainbows, we're going to tell the world about it.
Ah, crap. I'm about to lose all my my influence. So funny. Do me a favor, because I could only find so much about you, but, can you tell me a little bit about your background before all of this stuff happened, and like how you got to have, I know you're the CEO of Evolve, but I'm curious, like what was that before? What is Evolve even before this platform? And, how did you get here? Because, reading some of the things that are said about your perspectives, reading some of the articles and stuff you put out there, I mean, clearly you know your shit. So I'm just curious, with all of the knowledge and insight about social business, how you came to get here. Like, what's the stuff that happened before this?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, I was working for companies as a VP of sales and marketing, and I'm always looking for ways to cut through the noise with little budgets. Or even at a big company, when I was the head of sales at a publicly traded company, I was always looking for innovative ways to outmaneuver the competition. So I was, working with these companies and experimenting and toying and trying different things, and finally, decided that this was an area that I was passionate about and I wanted to pursue, and was very, very effective. And decided about a year ago that the clouts of the world and some of the other people that are trying to tackle influencer marketing didn't really have a firm grasp of it, either because they weren't an influencer themselves or had never really done this in the real world. So I had done, I'm not that influential, but I'm influential enough to know what influencers want. And I've applied these things over and over and over again in the real world, so I know how to do it the right way. I don't know, where it's going to end up, but I know at the beginning how to make brands and influencers work together in a very authentic way to move the needle. And that's what we've codified and put into Raynforest. So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, one of the things that, you mentioned that you've been able to codify this and kind of build it to a process. One of the things that I always really had a big issue with in the existing influencer platforms was that, yes, there was a way to identify people who were influential, but at the same time, the double-edged sword, the other side of that, is that it also gave a way for brands to ignore people who they didn't perceive as influential. So one of the things I saw about clout that was particularly frustrating for me is I would see companies say, they wouldn't talk to anybody in customer service unless their clout score is at least a 30 or something like that. Or, they wouldn't hire a particular community manager if their influence wasn't above a certain number, which, I kind of get if they weren't talking about if they were talking about activity, but, for influence, if they were actually using it in the true sense of the word. So, do you see that as being a potential issue with the platform you're building, or are you coming at it from such a different perspective that it's more about identifying opportunity than it is finding, I guess, a number-based way to ignore people that you don't want to talk to?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of problems with the number. We might end up with some kind of a Raynforest score. We're not initially out of the gate, but what's important is in the particular context that you want to work with this person, how can they do what you want them to do? So we're looking, what we're going to have out of the gate is subjective and objective measures. So it might be great that Jeff has got an 80 clout score. Well, what is that clout score? What does that really mean? Are you influential in creating furniture, for example? The answer is probably not. I don't know.
Not very handy.
Clout really can't tell me either. And is it easy working with Jeff? The only people that can answer that are the people that have worked with you in the past. So we're going to have both subjective and objective measurements in context, but we're also going to benchmark it. So we're going to compare you to everyone else to give you some kind of a performance score. The first phase, we won't have that performance score out there. We're just going to show the audience, any potential people that want to hire you, what you've done in the past, and then they can make their own determination. as well as you'll be getting subjective ratings from the brands that you work with. So we're tackling it a little bit different way, and you'll see in the future that it's going to get, I'll give you another hint, it's going to be predictive.
Okay.
So I'll be able to say, hey, I've got a new product coming out. Who are the best 10 people to help me promote this? And we'll be able to tell you.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. So does this only have an application for like a bigger business? So 2 parts. One, I want you to speak specifically to what you're building, but I also would love to hear, a lot of the people that listen to my podcast or that read my blog or that work with True Voice Media or any of that are people that are either small or medium-sized businesses. A lot of them are in highly regulated industries. A lot are solopreneurs and small, people that are kind of setting up their own shop, and they're looking for like really practical advice and straightforward sort of things. How can influencer marketing, how can identifying influencers in their particular area, how can that help them? What is their first step? Are there existing tools? Is it going to be Raynforest? Kind of lay it out for us.
Well, first of all, if it is sports related, or you could see how anyone in sports could help you with your business, you certainly want to go to Raynforest first. It will be the best place to go. If not, then I suggest tools like Littlebird and Tracker kind of begin looking for people to fill the stadium. That doesn't mean these are the people that you want to work with, but at least you put them in the right ballpark. And then for me, it's about 100-hour manual process in order to get and find the top 50 people. I sometimes go to 100 depending on how big the ballpark is or how many people are sitting in seats. And then I try to figure out, of these 50 to 100, which are the ones most likely to work with me. Once I figure that out, I pay it forward. And there's a number of different ways to pay it forward. Now, if there's 3 things that influencers love. The first is pay them. The second is
chocolate.
It depends on who it is. The second is increase their fame. And the third is attach or get them interested in a social cause that they have, a passion about. So if you could do any one of those 3, I don't care how big or small the business is, you can get them working for you. Now, I typically focus on the last 2. For me, paying them is kind of the last resort, not in Raynforest, by the way, but 2 and 3, if I'm doing it manually and I'm a small business and I don't have the budget, then I'll work my butt off to make them more famous or to find a social cause they're interested in and get them involved.
So, for instance, let's say you find someone that would never be willing to work for $1,000. They're too big for that. Maybe giving $1,000 to a cause that's important to them and gaining some publicity around that would be, a potential avenue around paying them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would probably get the press involved and donate $1,000, write something up or tweet about something. There could be a number of different ways. I'd also say, you might want to partner with them to do a webinar about, whatever social cause that they're interested in promoting. Just think creatively about how I can get that person involved in my business, which helps them as well. So there could be you have a podcast or you write for a tier 2 or tier 1 publication in their particular industry. Go interview them, find out what's important to them, make them more famous. And in the process, you learn way more about them. You build a relationship, and they're more likely to help you if they like you.
Pretty awesome. Do you have any of these things on your blog or in any of your publications where I can point people to it? Because I think that's all really good advice.
Yeah, I mean, I would go to the Raynforest blog. So that's blog.rainforest, again with a Y.com. And then the Forbes Socialized and Mobilized column. You'd probably have to Google it. Just Google Forbes.
Yeah, I found it. I'll put it on the show notes as well.
So, and then I have a Huffington Post column that I tend to talk more about influencer marketing, so I'd point them there as well.
All right, cool. I'll grab that from you after this also. Put that up there. Put all your stuff, man. Let's spread it out there. See, I am trying to get you more famous.
There you go. See? I appreciate that.
In hopes that you will convince your massive audience of influencers to listen to this podcast and rate it and do all of those wonderful things. So what's got you excited, man? What's next? What are you like really stoked about? Is it a technology? Is it something that's happening in business? Like, what's got you really excited?
Well, let's just say I've got the old regime that's doing what Raynforest has been doing for, let's say, 100 years. I got them shaking a little bit. So that always makes me happy. We figured out a use case. I alluded to this earlier. That is scalable. So that's good for me and my investors. That's always exciting.
Yep.
So now it's about execution and hoping we can keep it quiet as long as possible, because when we go out with this, we're going to have 1,000 copycats. So we got to stay ahead of them.
Gotcha. So does that mean that I can't publish this podcast for like another 3 months?
I haven't said anything.
Haha. What else though? I mean, where else are you, what sort of things are you looking at right now that are, aside from specifically looking at influencer marketing, look at some external forces and things that may overlap and interrelate with influencer marketing. What are some of the things that have you really excited right now? Did you see anything at the IBM conference last was it 2-3 weeks ago that got you really stoked?
Yeah, funny enough, tonight I'm publishing an article just on this very topic. Literally tonight. So there's 10 things that I'm really, really excited about. It's anything from what, I don't know if you've been following what Jeremiah Owyang has been doing with
my God, love it. Can't even get enough of it.
Yep, to the mobile, all the mobile fan engagement stuff, to anything from crowdfunding to what I call the digital athletes and public security getting friendlier. So I actually have quite a few things that really excite me outside of or tangentially related to influencer marketing. It's a pretty exciting time to be alive right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned the Jeremiah Owyang stuff, because I mention him all the time and talk to clients about it. And it's the stuff that I'm most obsessed with thinking about right now. Are you at all worried that there's going to be some sort of a collaborative movement that will displace the influencer marketing? That will take your platform and make it more flat and open to the collaborative crowd?
Well,
like an on-demand app, like an Uber for influencers?
How do you know we haven't created that?
Oh, damn. I'm excited for what's about to happen.
I'll give you a hint, another hint. The whole reason I got involved with this was because I got to study the Obama campaign and how they got him elected in those 8 swing states.
Yep.
It was everything from data to matching up influencers with the right, let's call them voters, to how that all worked behind the scenes with mobile applications. So you can bet.
I don't want to make you give away anymore, man. I feel like you've already said like 6 things that somebody's going to yell at you about. So that's awesome, man. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing it come out. I had asked you this before, and I feel like we should look at it a little bit more. I have a couple friends who are really into like the sports social media thing, and I thought it'd be fun to just kind of walk down that path a little bit. One of the things that the people that I know that are really interested in doing a practice dedicated to sports and social media are having an issue with is that there's a gap between the athlete and the agent. And getting in between them can often be extremely difficult. So it's often that the pathway to the athlete is through the agent, and they seem to not want anybody from the outside touching their client. Is that something that you have a plan, a way of dealing with? Because it has been a major challenge for some of my friends looking to get involved with athletes or with teams, or even with some broadcasters, depending on if they have agents.
This is actually one of our biggest problems, and this is what I tell the agent. I tell the agent, look, you can either partner with us, or I'm going to so inundate your client with brand requests that he's going to fire you. Because you cannot compete. One agent cannot compete with a marketplace with tens of thousands of brands that are looking for influencers. We're doing pull, they're doing push. And you've probably done the research. You cannot compete with push with one agent making phone calls, and that agent's got 8 or 10 other clients.
Yep.
So one way or the other, I tell them this is how it's going to go down. Now you can either play with it or not. It's not a threat. It's just, hey, history's on my side. It's just been done in other industries. It's going to be done to you. So I'm encouraging them to all work with me, but they're resisting. I expected it. I'm using the same playbook that other industries have used. We'll find the early adopter agents that get it. We'll work with them. We'll build a lot of buzz. We know how to create buzz, but we're going to build a lot of buzz. And the rest are either going to have to fall in line or keep fighting us. But I just see it as a losing battle.
That's awesome. I mean, I totally dig your style on it, and specifically with the platform that you're talking about. It seems like you have the infrastructure in place to be able to back that thread up, or not threat, that conversation. By the way, love the fact that on your Google Plus profile you have Robert De Niro and is that Joe Pesci on there? I forgot who you had up there, but it was totally gangster, and you just walk in there and you're like, "Yo, agent, I'm gonna just go ahead and go around you if I got to." So that's pretty awesome.
We want you to work with us, but if you don't, we got investors to pay off, and we got a business to build. So that's kind of we definitely want to partner. We do not want to compete.
Yeah. So if you were to look from your perspective, I mean, you've got the infrastructure and the product to kind of back that up. Do you have any sort of advice, or would you have any sort of thoughts on what you could say to somebody looking to start a practice group for sports and social media, connecting with fans, communicating, that whole thing? Because that really would be, the way I look at it, for what you're trying to do, that would be a great connection between what you're doing and what those social media consultants would be trying to do is really taking a new avenue for the client, which would be an athlete or whatever, helping them connect with their fans, but at the same time connecting with an influencer platform like yours.
Yeah, and so if I was just putting myself in their shoes, if I were them, I'd go to agents and the athlete, and I'd say, look, I'm going to help you become more famous and more, let's just say, more attractive to brands by teaching these people. And Mary Jo Martin, I don't know if you know who she is, but she did this with Shaquille O'Neal and a bunch of other high-profile sports athletes. But
she's the one that works with the Suns, right?
She did a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay.
So she made them more popular on social media, and all of a sudden they became more popular to brands, because if brands know that you can move the needle in social media, or maybe you have a large email list, or maybe you have a Google Hangout that 10,000 people jump on every time that they start one. Those brands are going to want to pay that athlete a lot more money to work with them. So the agent makes more money and the athlete makes more money. So I would if I were a social media consultant working in the sports field, I'd let the agent know, hey, I'm not trying to take away your business. I'm trying to help your client, which will eventually help you. And this is how I make money. Be very transparent about it. And if the agent is smart, they'll say, fantastic, let's do it. And hopefully an agent introduces that consultant to their other clients as well. So I always look for win-win situations each and every time. It's the path of least resistance, and that's what I would advise they do.
Kick ass, man. Good advice. I will definitely pass that along to my people. I still have to make some intros to you and some people that I know. But I am definitely looking forward to this platform coming out. And when you start having prominent voices in social business as influencers you're trying to connect to, I hope that I get an early invite.
Oh, you're all over it. You'll be one of the first I invite in.
Rockin', man. Well, listen, do me a favor. Tell the people listening where they can best connect with you, learn more about you, learn more about your company, learn more about influencer marketing, whatever you want to let them connect with you on. Let them know where to find you.
Yeah, I would just go to Twitter, and Twitter handle is Mark with a K, Fidelman, Fidelman, and look at my profile, look what I tend to talk about, and that's all they'll need to do to connect with me.
Cool, man. I'll put that in the show notes along with Raynforest, blog.rainforest.com, your Forbes column, and as soon as you send me the Huffington Post one, I'll put that in there as well, and people can learn more about you. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with your company, man. Thanks so much for being on the podcast. You're a good guy.
Thank you, Jeff. You are too.
Cool, man. So for all those out there listening, thank you. This has been Jeff Gibbard with Mark Fidelman. Did I say that right? I said Fiddleman at the beginning.
No, that's all right.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming on, everybody. Thanks for listening. Be sure to give us a rating and all that sort of good jazz.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks. Thanks again for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed that episode of Conversations. Be sure to go over to iTunes or Stitcher and give us a rating. Tell us what you love about the show, what you hate about the show, and we hope you come back for our next episode. Take care.